Hey everyone, and welcome to Unboxed. This is going to be one deep show. So let's unbox how Black families can stop white supremacy.
I'm Dr. Robert Davis, family life educator and relationship coach, and welcome to Unboxed, a frank and straightforward conversation about relationships. We're going to talk about family, church, workplace, and all other types of relationships. Join me for the next few moments as we unbox the power and potential of relationships and help you to live your best life.
Hey everyone, welcome and for joining us on Unboxed. I'm your host, Dr. Robert Davis. I would like for you to begin by liking, subscribing, and sharing. And also check out our website. If you have questions that you want to ask and you'd like for us to answer about relationships, please make sure you email us. All right, we got a lot to cover today, so let me jump right into this. I'm picking up where we were talking about building the Black family. And I talked about how the Black family needs to address our emotional and psychological way that we function, the emotional and psychological way that we function. And in order to do that, we have to kind of go back and understand how we were pre-programmed. Let me pick up right there. I'm reading from Joy DeGruy, Dr. Joy DeGruy. Her book is Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, America's Legacy of Enduring Injury and Healing. And in chapter 5, she says these words: "What are the impacts of generations of slavery and oppression on a people? In order to begin to understand the magnitude of this legacy on contemporary African Americans, it is important to examine the diagnostic characteristics of trauma. What are the effects of trauma on human beings? What does trauma look like? How does the trauma manifest itself? With what is known about trauma, it is probable that significant numbers of African slaves experienced a sufficient amount of trauma to warrant the diagnosis of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. As a result of centuries of slavery and oppression, most white Americans in their thoughts as well as actions believe themselves superior to Blacks. Of greater import, and this is what we're going to talk about today, of greater import, Dr. DeGruy says, too many African Americans unconsciously share this belief." Listen, my friends, you cannot teach a people for over 500 years that they are inferior and the people not start to believe the mythology themselves. That is just a fact. You cannot teach a group of people for over 500 years that they are inferior without those people beginning to believe that mythology themselves. We refer to this as multi-generational transmission process. Very simply put, how was your emotional and psychological computer programmed or pre-programmed before you were even born? And here is a sad reality, but a very sobering reality. And that is, before you were born, there were certain files and certain information that was pre-programmed onto your psychological and emotional computer that told you that white is right, Black step back. And things that were placed into your sphere once you became conscious that told you white is right, Black step back. And I'm going to say something that's going to be a little provocative, but please hear me all the way out. Like Dr. DeGruy says in her book, Blacks, as much as whites, suffer from white supremacy. I'm going to say that one more time. Blacks, as much as whites, suffer from white supremacy. For 500 years, Africans were excluded from any biblical depictions. In other words, God's story was a European story. And so when I was asked what was the most racist thing that I ever experienced being a member of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, I said that growing up in the 70s and the 80s, I never saw anyone that looked like me in God's story. The angels were white. The patriarchs were white. The prophets were white. The disciples were white. Jesus was white. God was white. Everything in the biblical narrative, everything in God's story was white. That has a profound impact on your subconscious, whether you want to acknowledge or not. Back in the 1940s, Kenneth and Mamie Clark, just to illustrate this some more, a husband and wife team of psychological researchers, used dolls to investigate how young Black children viewed their racial identity. Many of you are familiar with the black-white doll experiment. They found that given a choice between Black dolls and white dolls, most Black children preferred to play with white dolls. They ascribed positive characteristics to the white dolls, but negative characteristics to the Black ones. Then, upon being asked to describe the dolls that look most like them, some of the children became emotionally upset at having to identify with the doll they had just rejected. I'm going to give you a link to a very important article that was just done in your link in just a second. But right now, I want to share with you a video that illustrates. This video was done in 2007. So the first set of experiments was back in 1940. This one was done in 2007. MSNBC, CNN have done similar experiments with the same exact results. All right, roll that footage for me, please.
In Brown versus Board of Education, the famous case that desegregated schools in the 1950s, Dr. Kenneth Clark conducted a doll test with Black children. He asked them to choose between a Black doll and a white doll. In most instances, the majority of the children preferred the white doll. I decided to reconduct this test as Dr. Clark did to see how we've progressed since then. Can you show me the doll that you liked best or that you'd like to play with?
This one. I like that one.
I kill it.
This one.
That one?
This one. I like to play with this.
And can you show me the doll that is the nice doll? And why is that the nice doll?
He's white.
And can you show me the doll that looks bad? Okay. And can you and why does that look bad?
Because it's black.
And why do you think that's a nice doll?
Because she's white.
And can you give me the doll that looks like you? "15 out of the 21 children preferred the white doll."
Wow. And again, that experiment was done in 2007. CNN and MSNBC have also done similar researches. I'll put a link in the chat and you can look below and you'll see where you can find another article that was written that did similar things. As I shared with you before, unfortunately, Blacks as much as whites suffer from white supremacy. Okay, so how do we build up the Black family? Let me give you the first tip because I'm going to pick up on this conversation tomorrow, Black suffering from white supremacy, how it impacts our families and the way that our families function. But I want to give you just one simple tidbit to go home with tonight. What can we do? First thing, and I'll give you some other ones as we move throughout this week. Here's the first thing. Black families, and I'm starting with you. When I say Black families, I'm talking about you who are watching this right now or listening to this podcast. You need to begin to sit down and, as much as you're able, to think and to identify where white supremacy is being embraced in your family. Investigate your thinking is what I'm asking you to do. Investigate your thinking. Does white supremacy show up in the way that you prefer hair to look? Does white supremacy show up in the preferences you have about skin complexion? Does white supremacy show up in the way that you even teach your kids? As you talk about, if your children are too loud, you may tell them things like, be quiet, you can't be making all the noise around these white folk. That is actually white supremacy. When you say things, such as, they're not going to play because that's a white business. So, white folk ain't going to play like that. They're going to have their stuff together. When you make those kind of generalization statements to your children in your family about how whites do business better, how white education or schools are better, how white churches are run better, and things of that nature. These are just a few identifying marks of how white supremacy shows up within Black families. So I want to encourage you to begin to sit down and to think about how white supremacy shows up in your family. All right. That's all I'm going to share with you today. We're going to pick right back up here tomorrow. We're going to talk about how our computer was pre-programmed. We're going to talk about how we can rewrite a new emotional and psychological program and really build up the Black family. Again, like, subscribe, and share, and let's continue to unbox the power and the potential of our relationships. Until tomorrow, have a good night.
Seasoned with Grace, Unboxed also provides healthy relationship training and leadership development for businesses, churches, and community organizations. For a free consultation to discuss your team's needs, please contact us at our website at swg-unboxed.org. That's swg-unboxed.org.